Everyone thought the disaster had cut off all communications, but the small cafe owner Maria was creating miracles with her old equipment: ham radio frequencies, emergency protocols, encryption systems. These spoke to her in a language she'd learned 30 years ago. As the city raced against time for rescue operations, this quiet woman was about to reveal very different skills. From which city in the world are you watching this story today? If stories like this move you, consider subscribing to Unseen Legends for more tales of quiet heroes walking among us. Wednesday morning, 6:30 a.m. Hurricane Maria Cafe on Ocean Drive in Miami Beach was quietly opening. Maria Santos, 63 years old, was heating up her espresso machine and starting her daily routine. In her white apron, friendly face and gentle manner, she looked like an ordinary neighborhood cafe owner. She had been running this small cafe for 9 years, and to most customers, she was a familiar figure. Nobody knew Maria's past. To them, she was just Sweet Maria, making delicious coffee, chatting with customers, listening to neighborhood gossip, smiling at everyone. No one knew that between 1980 and 2005, she had been one of the most experienced communications specialists in the U.S. Army Signal Corps. This morning, when Maria turned on her radio, she heard disturbing news. A big storm was approaching. Category 4 Hurricane Irma. It was heading toward Miami. Her first customer arrived. Tom Henderson, retired police officer. Maria, how are your preparations? Good, Tom. I'm prepared for the storm. How are you? I'm worried. This hurricane is going to be serious. If communications go down, there'll be chaos in the city. This caught Maria's attention. Communication systems. She had dealt with this for 25 years. At 2 p.m. the wind picked up speed. Maria was preparing to close the cafe, but then the electricity went out. Phone lines were cut too. Tom came back in panic. Maria, the hospital is in emergency. Generators aren't working. They can't communicate with ambulances. Where are emergency services? They're in the same situation. All communication systems have collapsed. Maria hesitated. It was time to reveal the past she'd hidden for 9 years. Tom, I can help. How? I have ham radio equipment. I can establish emergency communications. Tom was surprised. How do you know about these things? Long story, but right now there's an emergency. Maria went down to the basement of her cafe. There was equipment she'd kept hidden for 9 years. Military-grade radio system, antenna equipment, encryption devices. She began taking out the equipment. Tom followed her. Maria, what are these? HF radio transceiver, VHF mobile unit, emergency repeater system. Where did you get these? Bought them from Army surplus, for hobby purposes. Actually, these were equipment from Maria's active duty days. She had taken some when she retired. She set up the main radio system. After 30 years she was using the same equipment. CQ, this is KM4ABC, Miami Beach Emergency Station. Any station, please respond. A few minutes later, an answer came. KM4ABC, this is W5DAF, in Orlando. Copy you loud and clear. Maria's face lit up. She had established communication. W5DA, we have medical emergency in Miami Beach. Hospital generators down. Need emergency coordination. Copy that, KM4ABC. I'll patch you through to state emergency services. Tom couldn't believe it. Maria, how are you speaking so professionally? I learnt in the Army. You were in the Army. Signal Corps, 25 years. Communication specialist. Tom's mouth fell open. Are you serious? Very serious. And right now we need to save our city. Maria began establishing an emergency network. Using different frequencies, she created a communication bridge between hospital, police, fire department, and ambulance services. Hospital base, this is Maria Emergency Net. Ambulance 47 is en route to your location. ETA 15 minutes. Maria Net, hospital base. Roger, we're ready to receive. For hours, Maria coordinated. Tom stood beside her, watching her. Maria, you're a real professional. How do you stay so calm? I did this job for 25 years, Tom. Desert Storm, Bosnia, Iraq, Afghanistan. I've experienced much harder situations. Why did you never mention it? Because the war ended. Now I make coffee, make people happy. At 8 p.m., the State Emergency Coordinator contacted Maria. KM4ABC, this is State Emergency. We've been monitoring your net. Outstanding work. Who are you? State Emergency. This is Maria Santos, former Army Signal Corps. Ma'am, you've coordinated 47 emergency responses tonight. You saved lives. Just doing my job. Negative. You did much more. What's your military background? Maria hesitated. Master Sergeant, 25 years active duty. Combat communications. Roger that. Ma'am, would you consider working with us full-time? We need someone with your expertise. I'll think about it. When the storm passed, the network Maria coordinated had saved 156 lives. hospitals, ambulances, police, all had worked thanks to Maria's radio network. The next day, Tom came to the cafe. "Maria, the whole city is talking about you. You're a real hero. I just did my job, but nobody knew you were in the army." "It stayed in the past, Tom." "No, Maria, you have very important skills." That week, the Miami Herald wrote an article about Maria. Cafe owner saves Miami. Hidden army hero. Coordinates emergency response. All the cafe customers were shocked. Mrs. Johnson approached. "Maria, were you really a soldier?" "Signal Corps, Mrs. Johnson. Communications specialist." "But why do you run a cafe?" "Because here I serve people. In the army and in the cafe." Young customer Jake asked. "Miss Maria, what did you do in the war?" "Communications, Jake. I established communication between different units. Coordinates, emergency response." "Would you teach us?" Maria thought. "You can get a ham radio license. It's important for community service." Offers from FEMA began arriving. Emergency Management Agency offered Maria a full-time position. "I could consider part-time," Maria said, "but I won't leave the cafe." "Why?" "Because here I serve the community. Coffee and emergency response are the same thing, helping people." Throughout hurricane season, Maria became the unofficial emergency coordinator. She converted the upper floor of her cafe into an emergency command center. Hurricane Maria Emergency Net. This is command center. All stations check in. Old army friends came to visit Maria. Colonel Peterson, her former commanding officer. "Maria, I heard about your emergency response. Outstanding work." "Thank you, sir." "Why didn't you stay in the army?" "I wanted peace, sir." "Community service, different kind of mission." "But you're still serving." "Yes, sir. Same mission, different battlefield." Miami's most unusual cafe owner, the woman who saves lives while serving coffee. The truth was, Maria loved both. Sometimes the most extraordinary people hide in the most ordinary places. People like Maria run cafes in neighborhoods, but their skills still save lives. Skills don't rust. The spirit of service never ends. The next time you see a cafe owner, remember, they might be protecting you in ways you never imagined. Have you ever met someone who appeared ordinary but had an extraordinary background? Tell us in the comments, and if you want to hear more stories about quiet servants like Maria Santos, subscribe to Unseen Legends, because sometimes the best communication is hidden in the neighborhood cafe. This story is a work of fiction created to honor the spirit of service. Any resemblance to actual persons or events is purely coincidental.